Hello everyone, today we're going to explore different systems of government and how power is organized in countries around the world. Let's begin. Well, a system of government is the way a country organizes their power and also their authority. It decides who makes the laws and who enforces them and how citizens basically participate on this. A unitary government. In a unitary government, most of the power is in the hands of the central authority. Local governments only do what the central government allows. An example is France, Japan, the United Kingdom. A United Kingdom is the most representative one, as basically Scotland, Wales, North Ireland follows what Great Britain says because they are the central government, and that's how many countries work at join. For example, Great Britain joined with Scotland, so that's basically what happens. A confederation. Well, a confederation is a group of states or regions that keep their independence but agree to work all together. For example, the central government in these types of countries is very weak. Another example is that the US was a confederation after their independence, and today the European Union is similar because all countries work together, but the difference is that, for example, the UA now they are independent countries, but they are in like a treaty in which they need to use a certain type of money, follow rules, and if one is attacked, others need to defend, but that doesn't let them to not be free. So the European Union is not a singular country, but it's similar. But the real example is the US. In the US, the certain states join together against Great Britain, and that's where we can see the difference. That's what we can see. So that's what makes them different, because US was a real country, and here I have photos of the Article of Confederation that was used after the independence of England. A federal government. Well, a federal system is divides the power between a national government and a smaller local governments like states or provinces, each one their own power and each one having their own power and responsibilities. Countries like the US and Mexico and Germany use federal systems. An example is the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, they were all one country. For example, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, they were separated from the Soviet Union, and Russia was also separated of the Soviet Union, and all the power was just centralized on Moscow. So that's basically how a federal government works. That is fair for everyone. Another example is Germany, because after the World War II, the Allies make it a federal country, as they didn't wanted it to get too powerful and do what they did in the Second World War. But in the Second World War, we also see some examples that it wasn't a federal government, but it was similar. For example, they had northern France, all the German states, but they leave free the southern, like for example the southern East Africa and also the southern states of France, and also they did the same, for example, for states near when they were invaded Russia, they went in to become states like, for example, Lithuania, Poland, and make divisions. That also they did it as something similar on the First World War. And here we have the countries that changes their system. Well, here we have an example of all that I have saying. The US changes from a confederation to a federal government. As I said, also Germany became a federal after World War One, and France also became a federal country since like 40 years ago. Also Russia from the Soviet country to federal country. Well, that's how it happened. And for example, here we have that the US at this time had a confederation that all states will work together, but after that they make a federal government. That means, well, they let them have some freedom, they all were now more united, and that's basically the difference between both of them. Well, so in my conclusion, each system has its strengths and also their challenges. Countries choose the one that fits their size, culture, and needs because that's something that is really important on this. Also, over the time, some of them evolved, like Russia, Germany, France, the US, to a better government. But this happened when they were growing, their people, their their population, the population, their sizes, and that's basically how it happened. And here are all my sources. I use sources from several places. I use most from image, and I also use some from to get information, and also I use Canva to make most of this design. And that's everything, teacher. Thanks for watching my video. That's everything.